Hello, Garland Nixon here, and it is kind of late, about 10:30 tonight, so I'm not going to be on too long. But I'm going to talk about this word, disinformation. What does it mean? We get all of this stuff about disinformation governance boards, and we got to be protected from disinformation. Let's talk about this word. Let's figure out what they're talking about and how it fits into the context of what we need to know about censorship. Misinformation, disinformation, that's a new one. Malinformation, almost like malicious information. We must be protected from it. This is what we've learned now. We've learned that we must be protected from certain types of information according to the government. So let's start off by doing this. Let's just look for why don't we just look for a definition for misinformation? I know what I think it is. You know what you think it is. Bull crap. But let's take a peek. Let's go with a couple of definitions. False information deliberately and often covertly spread as by the planting of rumors in order to influence public information or obscure the truth. Okay, a couple of things. Well, let's take this apart a little bit. Number one, it has to be false. According to this definition, false information, it has to be false. That's start. And deliberately and often covertly spread. Well, that isn't saying anything. To spread information, what does that mean? We hear those kinds of things, right? They spread information and deliberately or covertly. Look, if I go on TV, on the radio, on the internet, and I say something, it's attack for misinformation. Here's the bottom line that doesn't address. What if it's true? What if it's true? And it's in order to influence public opinion or obscure the truth. First of question, next question on top of that. And this is the important one about all of this. Who decides the truth? Who decides in a world of opinions, in a world of theories, in a world of perspectives in various contexts? Who decides what's true? See, the real problem here now is that our government wants to decide what's true. And they want to use clandestine manners. You notice this, often covertly spread, right? Let's look at a little bit more, one more definition for disinformation. A subset of propaganda and is defined as false information. So it has to be false. It has to be false. No, let's not forget, in 2016, the Department of the DOJ, whoever the hell they were, they put out this report, what's his name, Brennan was behind it, and they said that RT was involved in trying to mess with the election or whatever the case, right? Was trying to influence the election. But when they had the stuff in there, they covered the Black Lives Matter protests, or they covered fracking, or they had another thing that was literally in the report was they had a forum for third-party candidates. Well, there was nobody spreading false information there. So what's the problem with that? You can't have you can't have a forum for third-party candidates when no one else will do it. So really what we're looking at is this. That just displays the reality of what we're talking about. Here's what we all know, that it's a fraud. That this whole disinformation, misinformation, malinformation stuff, it's a fraud. It's just a new way for the fascist neocons to suppress dissent. That's all it really is. And they're the ones that are constantly hiding who they are, constantly hiding what they do. I looked at this when I was looking it up, and was it here? It was somewhere else. And they said, according to this, and they had this company called Access Now, according to accessnow.org, and this was all about misinformation. So I said, and I know this because there's shady NGOs, government sponsored NGOs everywhere, and they try to make it look like it's an independent company or a non-government company. But when you dig under the when you lift up the hood, it's just another government paid organization. So let's look here. So there was this thing that said Access Now. Doggone it, according to accessnow.org. So I said, well, let me look it up. Access Now, right? And I go looking down Access Now, and I see all the things that the neocons, the NATO cons, the warmongers would want. All the things that. So look, what do we get here? Money talks. Twitter's financial backers must use their power to mitigate risks of Musk's takeover. That's a big concern of the neocons, that Musk might take over. Look, what does Musk's free speech look like for the rest of us? Are you starting to see what Access Now means? Look, let's go down here. Digital rights in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Let's see what else we got. RightsCon 2022. Let's look at RightsCon. Let's do this together. Let's do something that I do sometime. I will click on this stuff and see what it is. RightsCon. Register for RightsCon. I bet you that's the perfect name because it's a con. Let's look and see who the sponsors of RightsCon are. Sweden, Microsoft, the ministry. Now, this is RightsCon. These are the people who are going to make sure that you have your rights. Look at this. Sweden, Microsoft, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Denmark, Google, the Nation of Canada, Amazon, Meta, Ford Foundation, German Cooperation, Twitter, Omidyar, that's Pierre Omidyar. He's the guy that owns PayPal and all that stuff, right? Internet Society, Mozilla, Verizon. Look at all these big companies. Zoom, Cisco, right? Some of this stuff, I don't even know what this is. IDRCCRDI, International Development Research Center, Canada. So that's the country of, again, that's a government entity. So Access Now, and so that's Access Now, right? So they've got us to going to RightsCon that is funded by all of the major corporations who are there to protect our rights. We can see that. Let's look some more at Access Now. And we'll look at their reports and financials. Let's see who's funding Access Now. They're there. Well, let's look at their work before we see. Business and human rights, digital security. Let's look at digital. We urge companies to make their prices okay. Oh, the same old crap. Musk, Twitter. U.S. Treasury moves to keep Russians connected despite sanctions. Don't help Putin and Lukashenko silence anti-war voices. The anti-war voices are the ones that are in favor now, that are in favor of the U.S. empire. That's anti-war. So, but we need to know. Access Now looks like an innocent enough company, an independent, non-government organization. How about we look at their funding? Who are they funded by? Twitter, German Foreign Office, the Open Society Foundation, SIDA, which is the government of Sweden, Luminate, AT&T, Mozilla, Jigsaw, Global Affairs Canada, Canada, German Foreign Federal Office, Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, German Federal Foreign Office. Look at all of this money. 219,000 from the German Federal Office. Open Society Institute, that's Soros. Apple, more. Look at this. Everywhere you look, 229,000 from the German Federal Office here. We go back here, September, which is the next month. They gave the German Federal Foreign Office gave them another 45,000. That's September. November, 2 months later, the German Foreign Federal Office gave them 220,000. Keep going up. December, the next month, the German Foreign Federal Office gave them 46,000. You see what I mean? Look at that. Google, 150,000. German Foreign Federal Office, 118,000. You keep going. UK Commonwealth Development Office, 127,000. Dutch Ministry of Foreign, on and on. Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 745,000, and on and on. Look at this. SIDA gave him 2.1 million. Let's look at seeing who SIDA is. The Swedish International Development Company. Sweden's government agency for development cooperation. We strive to reduce poverty and oppression in the world. You know, that's a regime change. So here's my point. Here's my point. This company, so-called Access Now, they defend and extend the digital rights of users at risk around the world. That's what they do. And they are funded by every malign a country that you could possibly think of. That is the fight against disinformation. That's the fight against disinformation. The fight against disinformation now is shady government corporations that hide money, the money that they're getting, instead of the German government or the Swedish government or the Canadian government or the government of Denmark saying we have an organization that's going to go online and supposedly protect your rights. Well, everybody would know that was a lie. They come up with something called Access Now, and they all just fund it. And now you can find country after, company after company after company like that. That's all they do. We fight for your right to speak freely, which is critical for demonstrating dissent, guaranteeing a free press, and defending human rights. We know good and well that that's not what that company is. That it's one of these neocon. That's what I'm talking about. These neocon think tanks who come up and say these fluffy things when the fact of the matter is this: they're narrative control. That's all they are. They know that people have things to say on Twitter that are outside of the narrative, and when you put something up that says, "Hey, there's Nazis in Ukraine," they know there's Nazis in Ukraine, but they don't want people to know that they're Nazis in Ukraine. So what do? They go to Facebook and they suspend you. They probably, they got billions of Twitter bots out here that are out there attacking people. I guarantee that's part of their game plan, is to have Twitter bots everywhere. You notice they're going after Elon Musk. And you know why they're going after Elon Musk? Because they use the hell out of Twitter bots. Because these types of groups, accessnow.org and all of these many groups, use the hell out of Twitter bots. That's the game plan. That's how they attack people like us. That's how they continue to file complaints. It is not for free speech or internet security. So the reality of this disinformation, misinformation game is this. It's simple. Misinformation is anything, especially if it's true, that pushes back against the government narrative, where they say it's false information, especially if it's true, then they have to shut it down. If you've got, I'm suspended right now. I'm suspended from Facebook right now for 30 days. Why? Because I put up an NBC, National Broadcasting Corporation, story about Nazis in Ukraine having swastikas and stuff on their helmets. I put it up twice and they said you're suspended for 30 days. So I'm suspended because I put up a story from 2014 that NBC News ran. But NBC's not suspended. Why? Not because it was false. And let me add this. Was I covertly or clandestinely put it up? I put it on Facebook for everybody to see. I put comments around it. Look, Nazis, Ukraine. And boom, down it goes. You can't have that up. So was that misinformation? According to what they say. See, here's the bottom line. According to their cover story, it's not misinformation. According to the reality of what they're doing, which is a way of the government controlling the conversation and the narrative, saying you don't have a right to determine what is valid to discuss, what is reasonable to discuss. You don't have a right to input your beliefs and feelings and the empirical data that you found and editorialize. You don't have a right to do that. The government has a right to do it. In fact, the government has a right to out and out lie to you if they feel that it's in the best interest of whatever mission they're on. They can do that to you. Lie, mislead, cheat. It doesn't matter. The government can do that. However, even if you're telling the truth, and especially if you're telling the truth, then you're not allowed to say things because it's outside of the government narrative. And that's what this whole Nina Jankowicz, that's what this whole Access Now and all of these fake and phony organizations. In fact, let me tell you one of the things I do. I'm going to do it again. We're going to go to Access Now, this government organization masquerading as an NGO. Let's look at this. So they're doing, and you can, it doesn't take long to connect these things. Okay, let's see. Our work. Campaigns. Let's look at the campaigns they're working on. A lot of the same crap. A lot of the same crap. Let's see. Uh, they're working. One of the things, where is it? One of the things they said is you can go to the RightsCon. Where's RightsCon? Register for RightsCon. So RightsCon is supposedly to where all of these companies show up. Let's look at the sponsors of RightsCon. We already looked at the sponsors. Um, let's see. About program, experience, participate. No, okay. Let's see. Read our funding policy. Download our sponsors pack. RightsCon is proudly brought to you by Access Now. So bottom line is, I mean, they're funded by the big boys, as you can see, corporations, biggest corporations, and the biggest and governments are this thing, and it's supposedly. Let's see what the program is. Let's look at the program. Good old RightsCon. Uh, Governance and electing, organizing, peace building, and humanitarian action. You'll see a lot of that stuff. Oh, great speakers, all neocons and things of that nature, or people. What they do also is this, and I've been kind of in that world before. Trust me, I know. One of the things they do is they will bamboozle people into believing that they're doing the right thing. So they'll have all of these speakers, and don't think that all of the speakers are malign people. That they'll have these events. I've been to some of them, and the event will appear to be for good. And when you listen to it, and see what's going on and read what's happening, it'll seem as though they're doing this for a good reason. And when you look deeper into it, you realize that they're up to no good as usual. They're doing the usual regime change stuff. We're going to spread democracy and human rights, and sometimes that's just the bottom line behind it. An argument that we have the ability to control what is democracy, what is human rights. And so it's just kind of reiterating we make these decisions around the world. And then, like what's going on in Myanmar right now, where the US is on China's border in Myanmar, and they're inciting terrorism and all kinds of terrible things and trying to destabilize the country of Myanmar, whatever it is, because it's on China's border. But they make arguments, and companies like this will have, or sites like this will have articles up about how the people of Myanmar have a right to a freedom of expression, blah, 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 when really the United States and the CIA are in there paying terrorists to blow shit up. So it's all a fraud. It's a lie. So misinformation in the context of how it's used in the neoliberal world and the neoconservative world, in the military industrial complex and think tank world, simply means any information, especially if it's true, that counters the United States empire's narrative, the U.S. empire's narrative, not somebody else's necessarily, the U.S. empire narrative, because that's the only one that matters to the U.S. and its vassal states. And misinformation cannot come from the government. It only comes from dissenters. It only comes from people outside of the government. It is dissent. Dissent against the government narrative is now misinformation, malinformation, or disinformation. Mal being malicious, because anything that pushes back against about what they're trying to do is malicious. I mean, right now, what the U.S. government is doing, and I'm going to do an article about that, is one of the most evil things. It's Nazi level evil. If you think about it, what's happening in Ukraine? The United States did what? Started pushing I mean, we claimed that it was NATO, but let's face it, NATO is just a way that the United States uses, something that the United States uses, a tool so that they can execute power of attorney for the foreign policy of all the European countries. So in reality, the United States took its vassal tool and started building military bases and military hardware right up to the border of Russia so that they could harass Russia, destabilize Russia, and then eventually overthrow Russia. That's what the U.S. does to any. It's going to encircle Russia. So that's what the U.S. was going to do. When Russia said cut it out, the U.S. said no. Russia said if you don't cut it out, you're going to get a fight. The U.S. said who cares? Go ahead and fight. Well, that's what we do best. We're ready to fight. Okay. And so that's why we did it there, so we could draw you into a fight, so we could cause problem, chaos, and instability, right? So the U.S. did this. But think about what's going to happen as a result. All of the people in Ukraine who are losing their lives, getting wiped out, generations of men in Ukraine, if you really know what's going on, there are generations of men getting ground into hamburger meat by artillery in the Donbass right now, surrounded, tens of thousands of people just getting wiped out. It's unconscionable what's going on. But what else is going to happen? Europe is going to get economically wiped out, which is not an accident. That is not an accident. That's part of the plan. But Europe is going to get wiped out. So the lives and the living standard of hundreds of millions of people in Europe is going to get wiped down to nothing. Okay. What else is going to happen because of this war and because of this crisis? You're going to have people in the global South that are going to have trouble getting food. There's going to be a global food crisis as a result of this. A global food crisis as a result of the United States and its malign activities on the border of another superpower, and it's doing the same thing on the borders of China. And as a result of that, so that the United States citizens wouldn't know that its government was involved in such malign activities, then the United States government has to lie to its people using misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation to influence them so they don't believe the truth. They don't know the truth. So the United States government starts this chaos on Russia's border, which is dangerous for the entire world, which is going to, at best, cause starvation and loss of living standards throughout the world, all over the world. Untold deaths will happen as a result of, people being hungry and people being misplaced and from their homes, and all these kind of terrible things that are going to happen as a result of food shortages and food crises. And then you're going to have destabilization in country after country, which will lead to violence and all kinds of things in the street. All right. All of this. And why? Why all of this? Because the United States wouldn't get the hell off of Russia's border, because Russia said, get the hell off of our border, which the U.S. should have got the hell off of their border. And the U.S. said, no, we're not going to get off your border. And Russia's like, well, we're not going to allow you to just encircle us and strangle us out like a freaking boa constrictor. That ain't going to happen. We'll fight first. And any country would have. We'd do it if we were on Russia's border. And as a result, the U.S. uses misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. And now people like us, like you and me, are asking questions saying, what the hell's going on? Is it worth it? Government. U.S. government, we're starting to struggle. What about the people of Europe? Your policies are causing them to struggle. You people are lunatics and idiots and lemmings. And you're throwing us off a cliff. The Europeans, God help them, they're screwed. So in reality, what the U.S. is doing is horrible, terrible, unthinkable, and it's going to cause maybe millions of lives around the world as a result of all of this. Complete destabilization of the entire world. So the United States, just so the U.S. could continue to put military hardware on Russia's border. The whole world has to be destabilized. All the U.S. had to do was say, okay, we'll take our military hardware off your border. Is it that necessary? Is it that necessary for the U.S. to have military hardware on Russia's border? Well, it is, if the U.S. is truly trying to overthrow the government of Russia, trying to strangle them out with military gear, trying to surround them with military gear, destabilize them, and overthrow their government, which is what the U.S. is doing. So the Russians accuse us of doing that. The U.S. is doing it to Russia and to China at the same time. It's insanity. It is fascism. It is expansionism. It's very sick. And it's coming back to cost us, the people, horribly. Therefore, the U.S. goes to misinformation, disinformation, so it can say things like, this was unprovoked, as if nothing ever happened before, as if we weren't warned in 2008 by the Russians that Ukraine was a red line, as if we didn't overthrow the government of Ukraine in 2014, as if there hasn't been an ongoing civil war going on in Ukraine where 16,000 people were killed. No, none of that exists. Unprovoked is what we say. Nothing happened before that. Putin just woke up and decided that he wanted to expand the USSR, and therefore he started a war with Ukraine unprovoked over nothing. They're lying to us. That is clearly a lie. So that's clearly intentional misinformation, falsehoods, and put forth often covertly in order to influence our decision so we don't know the truth. We're sitting here trying to get the truth out, and we're the ones accused of disinformation. That's all you have to understand. Disinformation is dissent. Dissent, disinformation. Dissent against the U.S. empire is disinformation. That's it. That's all you need to know. True, false, or indifference. Dissent is disinformation. They're fighting against dissent, and they're calling it the disinformation. This was going to be the dissent government board, governance board. They called it the disinformation governance board, and yet don't think they're abandoning what they're doing. They're not going to close down all of these. What do you call them? NGOs and so-called nonprofits that are every one of them is funded by the government and Google and things of that nature. But I repeat myself. Well, at any rate, it's time. I've only been on 25 minutes tonight. I'm tired, so I wanted to do a little something short. First of all, S and Derek, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate that. We got another super chat here. We've got Chris. It is digital colonialism. You are quite correct. That's exactly what it is. We're going to look on Rockfin. No tips on Rockfin, but that's okay. I want to thank everybody. I'm going to put the stream in here for anybody who wants to go over to Rockfin. I always ask everyone to do something that's very important to me, and that is what I need you to do is I want you, if you're on Facebook, excuse me, if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Twitter watching this, go to my Rockfin page, ROKFIN, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon, and please subscribe. We can also get members. I do my COVID stuff is all premium for members only, $9.99 a month. That does allow you to watch any premium on Rockfin by any of the creators, not just me. So it's worth it. It's really good. And my COVID stuff, which I'm starting to expand on, is all under premium. I appreciate those who can donate and help the cause. Also, I've got patreon.com/Garland Nixon. Even if you can only do $1, $3, $15, $20, $100, whatever you can do is greatly appreciated. So please help me out at my patreon.com @Garland Nixon. If you're on Twitter, come to Rockfin, come to Facebook, and subscribe. And on Facebook, don't forget to smash the like button and click the little bell. Thanks a lot. Oh, I'm going to have Saturday's going to be fun. Dr. Gerald Horn, he's brilliant. We got a lot of things to talk about Saturday. So Dr. Gerald Horn's a brilliant guy. He's written like 30 books. He's really incredible knowledge of history, incredible knowledge of what's going on around the world. So that's going to be a fun Saturday morning. Thanks a lot. Peace. I'm out.